Hello, welcome to HITC Sport. Right, today let's take a look at every Premier League club and find the best player they sold for less than £1 million since 2010. Oh, I know, free transfers and loan deals don't count. No, this is more embarrassing because it highlights that your board actually demanded money for the player, only to settle for, in footballing terms, absolute pennies. Right, let's go. Arsenal, NACHO MONREAL, £225,000. Okay, most Arsenal fans probably assume the 34-year-old left-back NACHO MONREAL is currently working down his local car wash, right? After 6 years and 251 games at the Emirates, he looked burnt out. A washed-up defensive ham and cheese toasty, practically screaming for admittance down the local nursing home. A guy who by all rights should be playing picture in the afternoon while constantly drooling down his chin. No, he was tossed away for just under £250,000 in 2019, and he's currently in a top 4 La Liga hunt with Real Sociedad. He played 33 games last season, and even at 34, has played the full 90 minutes 12 times this campaign. Arsenal fans will see him marking Mason Greenwood at Old Trafford next February, and honestly, will probably be furious to let him go for actual couch change. Aston Villa, Karim El Mohamady, £630,000. Okay, let's be honest, Karim El Mohamady was an Aston Villa flop, but who wasn't under Paul Lambert? Christ love, he signed one of the most informed English strikers, last decade's answer to Danny Ings, and reduced him to a wet lump of cottage pie stuffed on the Villa bench. El Mohamady is a midfielder with 60 caps for Morocco, was sold to Feyenoord in 2014 for just £630,000. If the board of directors of Villa Park actually thought that was a bargain, then good Christ, he's since played over 150 times for Feyenoord, winning the Eredivisie title in 2017, he played in the 2018 World Cup, and you replaced him with Carlos Sanchez for 10 times the price of what you sold him for. Just ridiculous. Brighton, Ashley Barnes, £491,000. This has to go down as one of the worst transfer decisions in the history of Brighton Football Club. After firing the club out of League One in 2011, sure, Barnes looked like he was out of his depth in the Championship. He scored just 5 goals for them in the 13-14 season. But guess what? So did Jamie Vardy the season before. Give him time. Do not sell him to Burnley for £491,000. The price of Cristiano Ronaldo could have bought him on 3 days' wages and hired him as a personal butler around his house. £491,000 for a guy who's gone on to score over 30 times in the Premier League? Good Christ. Burnley, Chris IWELUMO, £315,000. Okay, Burnley only sold one footballer for under £1 million since 2010, and that was Chris IWELUMO. Shipped off to Watford in 2011 for just £350,000. To be fair, I don't really blame Burnley for this. IWELUMO was washed up. Chelsea, Scott Sinclair, £540,000. I think it's fair to say Chelsea extracted every last fibre of quality from Michael Essien. Signed for £24 million in 2005, they sold him 9 years later for £450,000. But let's be honest, Essien in 2014 was used up shell of a human being. Just a couple of years off playing in Azerbaijan and against John Bishop at Soccer 8. So let's go for Scott Sinclair, who was binned off to Swansea for just £530,000 in 2010. No, he was never good enough for Chelsea, but still, 27 goals in one championship season, including a hat-trick in the playoff final, then a further 8 goals for Swansea in the Premier League. Factor in the fact he played nearly 20 times for the champions of England, bagged home 60 goals in 3 seasons for Celtic, winning every trophy in sight. Oh yeah, and he scored at the goddamn Olympics as well. Based on the strength of that CV, quite well, Chelsea should probably have got more money if they'd held out. £10 million at least. We all know what English hype is like. Crystal Palace, Darren Ambrose, £288,000. Yeah, Crystal Palace haven't sold too many good players for less than £1 million. Let's say Darren Ambrose, an attacking midfielder who was allowed to scuttle out the door to Birmingham 2012 for the footballing equivalent of pennies. You might assume that Ambrose is a big bag of turkey juice. No, let's not forget he batted in 20 goals in his first season for the club. Even in his last season, chipped in with 10 goals, including a 35-yard screamer in that famous win at Old Trafford. So really, Palace should probably have got more money. Everton, John Ruddy, £540,000. Yeah, back in 2010, John Ruddy was just a 23-year-old keeper binned out of Goodison Park for just over £500,000. To be fair, the guy since went on to be a quality championship level goalkeeper and even played 117 games of Premier League football for Norwich. The man was chucked in the England squad, represented his country, even Jose Mourinho wanted to sign him for Chelsea. And if he had, then it'd be him, not Mark Schwarzer, playing a Champions League semi-final against Atletico Madrid. Price above, can you imagine that? So really, Everton probably should have persisted with him a little longer. Fulham, CAULEY, WOODROW, £765,000. Ah yes, the man who forced me to eat stale cheese from a bucket. I'm sure CAULEY WOODROW was a nice guy, but for that, I hope he gets an outbreak of chicken pox. Anyway, after 8 years of failing to cut it like Craven Cottage, this former Fulham wonder kid was finally given away to Barnsley in January 2019 for less than £1 million. Considering he since banged in 12 goals in League One to get them promoted, and then 14 goals to keep them up in the Championship last season, and now already has 8 in 19 games in the good Christ, Fulham selling him for just 6 figures? It's a bit of a financial mess. Leeds, Billy Sharp, £635,000. Yeah, since 2003, Leeds United have become pretty adept at giving their bank account a heart attack. Good Christ, for about 10 years it wasn't so much a football club, just a massive financial toilet, and bidding up Billy Sharp for just 1 year at Ellen Road and for just £600,000, essentially 6 weeks worth of Danny Drinkwater's wages. Oh, it was just utterly mental. Sure, he'd only scored 5 championship goals in 33 games at Leeds, so most assumed he was a washed up lump of candle wax, but then he scored 51 goals in 2 League One seasons for Sheffield United, then a further 36 goals in 2 championship seasons to get them promoted. He outscored every single Leeds player that season. I mean, come on. Leicester sold Bamba £810,000. Sold Bamba was the original Wes Morgan. By all rights, this French centre half could could have been the one lifting the Premier League title in 2016. And if you try and tell me that's ridiculous, that Bamba wasn't good enough, I'm sorry, and Morgan was a journeyman Jamaican international with a championship standard CV. Clearly weird things were in play that season. Bamba was a former PSG youth product, a former Dunfermline and Hibernian defender who arrived at Leicester in 2011 and was then sold to Trabzonspor in Turkey. Considering this guy went on to play over 100 games for Cardiff, getting it promoted, with Neil Warnock actually saying he was a better defender than Virgil van Dijk. Okay, clearly Warnock had accidentally swallowed too much shampoo that day, but still, I genuinely believe Bamba could have been that Premier League winning captain. Liverpool, Dirk Kuyt, £900,000. Yeah, Dirk Kuyt was a bit of a cult hero with Anfield. He arrived as a prolific centre-forward from the Eredivisie in 2006, and they could have given up on him after just one season, but instead Rafa Benitez made him the next Ji-sung Park, a dogged workhorse patrolling the right wing with such a level of high energy fitness, but that must have made him feel like puking up both kidneys after every match. Anyway, this high-school penalty taker was finally sold at the age of 32 to Fenerbahce in 2012 for less than £1 million. Sure, he did alright in Turkey, but he was back at Boyle club Feyenoord where he slammed home 23 goals in his first season, then 15 in his second to win them their first Eredivisie in 18 years. Man City, Philippe Caicedo, £900,000. Yeah, here was Philippe Caicedo, a highly rated Ecuadorian striker who literally got lost in the influx of big name marquee signings at the start of the Man City takeover. In 2011 he was sold to Lokomotiv Moscow for just £900,000. To be fair, Roberto Mancini probably even forgot who the hell he was. He's never been a prolific goal scorer, but hey, he was a 10 goal a season striker with Espanyol in Spain and now Lazio in Serie A, and so he was probably worth more than £1 million. Man United, Danny Drinkwater, £810,000. Yes, Danny Drinkwater's career is currently crammed down the sink, but still, here's the facts. In 2012, not only did Manchester United allow a future world record signing, a world champion, to walk out of the club on a free transfer, but they also gave up a future Premier League winning midfielder, an England international, and £30 million Chelsea signing for just £810,000. This guy was sold for less than what they got for the likes of Gabriel Obertan, Bebe, and Angelo Enriquez. I mean, come on. Yeah, he's a bit of a joke now, but the Drinkwater of the 15-16 season could arguably have gotten in that Man United team. He'd have been a better option than Morgan Schneiderlin, or even, and yes, I realise this sounds sacrilege, Bastian Schweinsteiger. I mean, the past version of Schweinsteiger, that is, don't worry. The Bayern version would obviously use this guy's career to butter his toast. Newcastle, Ivan Toney, £351,000. Yeah, you just know Ivan Toney is a future £25 million departure from Brentford. He's well on his way to 30 goals for the season, and yet the genius of Newcastle sold him to Peterborough in 2018 for just £351,000. How in a good conscience can the club give Joselu 30 games a season, have a fan base literally crying out for a recognised centre forward, and yet sell a promising young striker like Toney for 2 weeks worth of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain wages? Just utter nonsense. Sheffield United, Aaron Ramsdale, £846,000. Sheffield United fans seem to celebrate the return of Aaron Ramsdale from Bournemouth last summer. No, I'm sorry, your board should have been utterly ashamed of having to fork out nearly £20 million to get back a guy who you sold for less than £1 million in 2016. Bournemouth essentially made £18 million off this deal. Southampton, Billy Sharp, £270,000. Yeah, here's good old Billy Sharp once again. Sold by Southampton to Leeds for just £270,000. No, he was never going to get into the Southampton team, but still, considering the amount of goals he banged into Sheffield United, was he really only worth just $270k? Tottenham, Ryan Fredericks, £225,000. Listen, Ryan Fredericks was never going to do anything at Tottenham, with the amount of right backs they had employed at the club, but still, sold to Bristol City for just £225,000 in 2015. He's since gone on to play over 100 games for Fulham and then over 50 for West Ham. Yeah, he's an average mid-table player, but still, sold for just under $250,000? Really? West Brom, Pablo Ibanez, £513,000. Yeah, here's good old Pablo Ibanez, a defender with 23 caps for Spain, spent 6 years at Atletico Madrid, and yeah, by the time he wound up in the Midlands, he was well past it, but still, sold by West Brom to Birmingham for just over £500,000 in 2011. West Ham, Sam BYRAM, £747,000. Yeah, okay, listen, Sam BYRAM was a West Ham disappointment, after all the hype he picked up at Leeds, but yeah, this 27-year-old right back sold to Norwich for just £747,000 in 2019. To be fair, this fella is probably championship standard. Wolves, Stephen Ward, £567,000. Yeah, back in 2014, Wolves were stuffed in League One, and after 7 years of employment, they allowed Stephen Ward to walk off to Burnley for just £567,000. He went on to play 2 seasons in the Premier League, was a fairly solid left back, went on to win 50 caps for Ireland. Yeah, it worked out well enough for Wolves in the end, but still, they could have had 2 Irishmen to full-backs, i.e. being the modern day Leeds United. Never mind your Portuguese revolution. Wolves, you missed out. Anyway, that's it, lads. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.